is up, YouTube? This is the 82 and 0 podcast. Continuing on, today we're going to talk about Bill Walton. Now, Bill Walton was born in November 5th, 1952, and he was raised in La Mesa, California. The son of Gloria and William Walton, he was raised with siblings Bruce, Kathy, and Andy. And everyone in his family was pretty tall. He would, obviously he'd grow to 6 feet 11. But it's actually been reported nowadays that he was closer to 7 foot 2. And I think there's some merit in this because if you look at pictures of him next to Kareem, he looks taller than him. Walton's father, Ted, was a music teacher and social worker, and his mother, Gloria, was a librarian. His parents had interest in art, literature, politics, and music. And Walton was always pretty political from an early age. I'll get into that in a minute. When the Walton children were in junior high and high school, Mr. Walton formed an informal family band. Bruce and Bill played trombone and baritone. Andy played the saxophone and Kathy played the flute. Bill and I couldn't quite get past enough, Bruce said. Walton first played organized basketball under Frank, who coached the Walton's Catholic elementary school. And from an early age, he always liked basketball. Walton played high school basketball at Helix High School in La Mesa. He played with his brother Bruce, who was 1 year older than him, and he himself stood at 6'6". And Bruce was also a star football player as well. If Bill Walton was getting physical treatment in basketball game, Bruce returned the treatment. They were very competitive brothers. And I want to talk about his injuries. They don't just start in the NBA. Walton struggled with injury and pain began at Helix High School, where he broke his ankle, and he broke an ankle, a leg, and several bones in his feet, and underwent knee surgery. Before his sophomore season, Walton underwent surgery to repair torn cartilage in the left knee. Because of his recovery from knee surgery, Walton played most of his year playing the saxophone on the junior varsity team. Coach Gordon Nash promoted him to the varsity team the end of the season, but he played only 6 games and did not start any of them. During his sophomore year of high school, age 15 to 16, I should say, Walton grew from 6'1" to 6'7". Coach Nash played Bill and Bruce Walton together in the paint. Bill was taller, but frail, and he had not filled into his growing frame. Bill was unable to play a complete game without resting. He would simply get too tired, recalled Coach Nash. So let's talk about his high school career. He overcame a lot of injuries at Helix High, and they went on a 49-game win streak in high school. 49 consecutive victories in his 2 varsity seasons. Helix won California Interscholastic Federation Basketball Championship in both 1969 and 1970, finishing 29-2 in the 68-69 and 33-0 in the 69-70 season. Walton had entered high school at a height of about 6 foot, and by the time of his graduation, he was about 7 foot tall. Walton averaged 29 points, 25 rebounds, as Helix finished 33-0 in his senior season. As a senior in 1969-70, Walton made 384 of 490 shot attempts, 78.3% free field goal shooting, still the all-time national record. In addition, Walton had 825 rebounds, which is ranked 3rd all-time. His 25 rebounds per game ranks number 7 all-time. Walton was featured in what was called Faces in the Crowd in the January 26, 19 issue of Sports Illustrated. It was his first national media coverage. It was a dream come true for him, Walton said. Hall of Fame coach Denny Crum was there as the assistant coach of UCLA. Under Coach John Wooden, sent to watch Walton play, Crum first saw Walton in 1968 as a high school junior, and he wanted him to go play at UCLA. Now, when Walton was in high school in 1967, the NBA expansion team came to San Diego. The Houston Rockets today were actually started in San Diego. And that's kind of Walton's hometown. La Mesa's not that far from San Diego. It's like a suburb of it. So anyways, while he was in high school, the Rockets had no set practice facility and would often play pickup games at Helix High School. Rockets player learned to get into the Helix gym. They could call, whenever they were in there, they would play games with Bill Walton. And he had his own gym key, and he would constantly work on his footwork with Elvin Hayes. Elvin Hayes was like a mentor to him. It's kind of crazy, think about a teenager getting that opportunity. That's awesome, We had the best gym in San Diego, and all the Rockets players wanted to go there, Walton reflected. They had some great teams with Elvin Hayes, Calvin Murphy. They had future head coaches, broadcasters such as Pat Riley, Rick Adelman, Rudy Tomjanovich. These guys treated me like a little brother, and it was amazing. So like I was saying earlier, after high school, Walton had always been a fan of UCLA, and he followed them on the radio. And many colleges in the country wanted him, but, it was inevitable for him to go to UCLA. So he would go and play under the legendary John Wooden. And Wooden was like a lifetime mentor to Walton. He said he was Bill Walton said he was John Wooden's easiest recruit. I became his worst nightmare. I drove the poor guy to an early grave when he was only 99. I had 3 different periods of my life in my relationship with him. When I was a high school student and he was recruiting me. When I played for him when I was 17 to age 21. And then the 36 years of being his friend. I have no idea what he had at UCLA. I thought everybody had some great thing. Great parents, great schools, great neighborhood, great colleges, great coaches. Then I joined the NBA and I realized immediately that I just had absolutely blown this whole deal with John Wooden. And so I spent the rest of my life, first of all, trying to make it up to him. And second of all, no longer bringing stress into his life. Walton played for UCLA under Coach Wooden from 1971 to 1974. His older brother Bruce played football at UCLA, enrolling a year ahead of Bill. Bill Walton led the Bruins to 2 consecutive 30-0 seasons and the NCAA men's basketball record 88-game win streak. The UCLA streak contributed to personal winning streaks that lasted almost 5 years, in which Walton's high school UCLA freshmen were added together. He's much similar to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, great high school and college career. With Walton, UCLA won NCAA championships in 1972 over Florida State, and again in 1973 with an 87-66 win over Memphis State, in which Walton made 21 of 22 field goals. Now, I want to talk about his college career off the court, right? It's not really important, but I want to mention he was always very political on campus, and he was in anti-Vietnam protests, and he was described as kind of like a hippie, if you want to say. He was a fan of the Grateful Dead. He's a deadhead. But he got into some trouble in college. Maybe I should do a longer video on this. I don't want to, make this the whole video about it. But his anti-Vietnam protests kind of got him into trouble with UCLA. Because he got arrested. And he wasn't able to show up to practice, I think it was, or a game. I'm going to have to look it up for you guys sometime. But what I want to say is, I think what Bill Walton was talking about, the stress he caused John Wooden, was his Vietnam protests. I think it rubbed Coach Wooden the wrong way, because he had to come bail him out of jail a few times from what I've read at anti-Vietnam War protests. He said, "Bill, I know you feel very strongly about this, but I just don't think you're getting arrested and taking part in the demonstration will help you in your life. I have no problem with him during the season," Wooden said of Walton's college days off the floor. I worried that he would get thrown in jail and he would never be able to play and maybe potentially ruin his future. Hey, man, more power to him to protest the bullshit war, you know? So anyways, Walton was drafted by the American Basketball Association. That's something a lot of people don't know. In the 1973 ABA draft. And he was drafted by the Dallas Chaparrals, right? And in the locker room after the 1973 championship game, Coach Wooden introduced Walton to the representatives of the ABA, who hoped to convince him to turn pro, of which I had no interest in doing, Walton said. In 1974, the ABA's San Diego Conquistadors tried to persuade Walton to sign with them. After drafting him in the 1974 ABA draft, San Diego had also signed Wilt Chamberlain as a player coach. And think about that front line. Bill Walton and Wilt Chamberlain, that'd be crazy. Walton was the number 1 overall pick of the 1974 draft. He was drafted by the Portland Trailblazers, right? And this is where it gets interesting, because Walton's first 2 seasons in Portland were marred by chronic foot injuries. In addition, during his first 2 years, Walton badly sprained an ankle, broke his left wrist twice, dislocated 2 toes, dislocated 2 fingers, broke a toe, injured his leg in a Jeep accident. As a rookie in the 74-75 season, Walton averaged a double-double, 12.8 points per game, 12.6 rebounds per game, and 4.8 assists per game. And 2.7 blocks per game, I want to mention, in just 35 games. Now, in the 75-76 season, Walton would average 16.1 points per game, 13.4 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game, 1.6 blocks per game, in just 51 games. And they don't make the playoffs his first 2 years there. But I want to get into this title run that he has. So in 1976-77 season, this would be his 3rd official year in the NBA. Like I said, he only played 35 in the first year, 51 in the second. But we got to see a glimpse of how good he was, because in the 76-77 season, he puts up 18.6 points per game, 14.4 rebounds per game, 3.8 assists per game, 3.2 blocks per game, 52% field goal shooting, and it was his first All-Star appearance. And I also want to mention that, you know, he's a great what-if story. He reminds me a lot of Derrick Rose. I'll get into that in a minute. So, the 77 season, right? They have a great year. He plays 65 games, right? Not the whole season, obviously, but 65 is better than what he had been playing. And so, in that postseason, they go all the way to the finals, right? And they're matched up against the Philadelphia 76ers. And this is the first year of the merger between the ABA and NBA. So, this is a very important year for the NBA. And it's a great series, because Philadelphia, they would get off to a strong start, right? The Sixers, who had Julius Erving, they would take the series lead at 2-0. And they were the favorites, no doubt, to win. And Portland just destroyed them. But they were still pretty close games. Like Game 5, Portland won by 6. Game 6, they won by 2. Bill Walton would average 18 points, 19 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 3.7 blocks on 54% shooting. and he would have a championship at just the age of 24. You know? And going into the 77-78 season, this would be his best year there. They'd win 58 games. He would win MVP that year, and it'd be his only MVP, obviously. But it's kind of a controversial MVP pick because obviously he didn't play very many games. He only played 58 games that year. And so that kind of pissed some people off that he won MVP. But regardless, you saw his potential. And unfortunately, this is kind of sad. Following the season in the 77-78 season, the Trailblazers, it's really sad to talk about these injuries for people. He was injured and lost the remainder of the playoffs after just the second game. And after having received pain-killing injection to play X-rays taken after Game 2 revealed the navicular bone below Walton's left ankle was broken. Portland lost the series to Seattle in 6 games, so they lost in the first round. And come on, they probably could have won it back-to-back. Walton would never again play for the Portland Trailblazers. That's pretty sad. But during that offseason, Walton demanded to be traded, citing unethical and incompetent treatment of him and other players. And he felt he wasn't being treated right for his injuries. Like, he thought they were making him play when he was hurt too bad, you know? So, he would get traded. He would never play another game with the Portland Trailblazers. And he'd be a journeyman. So, he gets traded, right? He goes to the San Diego Clippers, which, you know, his hometown. And he misses the entire year. His first year, well, what would have been his first year there, 78, 79, doesn't even play. Foot injuries, right? So he comes back 79, 80 for the San Diego Clippers, and he only plays 14 games. Then 80, 81 misses the entire year. 81, 82 misses the entire year because of foot injuries. He returns 82, 83 with the Clippers. Plays only 33 games. 83, 84, he only plays 55 games. I've heard him talk about he'd battle with depression during this time, even suicidal thoughts. And one thing that's kind of sad that he talks about is he feels like a failure because he's playing in his hometown, right? And he just let him down so bad that he wasn't able to bring a championship to San Diego, his hometown. And he feels that it's his greatest failure of his life because he could not get his job done in his hometown. And, you know, the team moved. They left San Diego. And he feels if he would have got him a championship, they'd still be there, you know? But anyways, it's kind of sad, you know, he's battling with depression and stuff during this time. And I think the high of his career comes now, after this, because the Clippers would trade him to the Boston Celtics for Cedric Maxwell and a future first-round pick, which would be Arvydas Sabonis. Now, the 85-86 season would be his first year in Boston, and this would be Boston's arguably best team ever. They win 67 games that year, and they win the finals. But he plays 80 games that year, you know, the most of his career. It's pretty amazing. And he wins 6th Man of the Year coming off the bench. He puts up 7 points, 6 rebounds, 1.3 blocks. You know, he was a great 6th man. And they didn't run it back. The next year, he only plays 10 games with the Boston Celtics, and he would miss the entire 87-88 season with the Boston Celtics because of foot injury, and he would just retire after that. So that's kind of sad. Great what-if story, kind of like a Derrick Rose story. Although this guy got 2 championships, So that's at least something. He did have an MVP, 2 championships. He's still a top player all time. But he overcame a speech impediment that he had. And he became, and I'm sure a lot of people know this, he became a really great broadcaster. He was a color commentator, worked for CBS. He covered NCAA basketball on CBS. He covered NBC basketball. The LA Clippers he covered from 1990 to 2002, and he was on ESPN from 2002 to 2009. That's where I remember him more from. And after 19 years of working in broadcasting, he left ESPN in November 2009 as a result of back problems, which he dated back to an injury that he suffered in college at UCLA. Following surgery on his back, Walton returned to broadcasting as a part-time commentator for the Sacramento Kings. And he's one of my favorite commentators of all time. He's just brutally honest. But yeah, he had I'd say, didn't reach his full potential because of injuries. But, he still won 2 championships. Most people don't even get that. He got to travel the world. He went and saw his favorite band, the Grateful Dead, in Egypt in 1978. That's a lot of stories for people. So he still had a really great life. He had a son, Luke Walton, who played in the NBA too, and now he's a coach. So that's Bill Walton's story. Great commentator. 69 years old today. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching.